Sisters and brothers, the God of Israel says to us today, do not be afraid. The jar of flour shall not go empty, nor the jug of oil run dry. The scriptures today tell us that generosity in the midst of overwhelming disaster and despair is the mark of a true Christian disciple. Today, I want to share with you three women in my life that were just such disciples. First, Grandma Strawder. My wife's grandmother was an incredible lady. By the time I met her, she was well into her 80s, but the light was not out of her eyes. And boy, did she have a story to tell. Moving with her family to St. Louis from Mississippi at a young age, living in Pruitt-Igoe with her husband and 7 small children in a little apartment, then with the help of Father Shockley, buying a small home on the north side of town, working in the kitchen at Central Catholic Elementary for over 40 years, sitting and presiding over her small kitchen in that house every day, always having food in the kitchen, making sure that her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, friends, community, and even her grandson-in-law always had enough to eat. She was a force to be reckoned with, and she would always staunchly defend her family. I remember when I started to date Cheryl, she pulled me to the side and said to me forcefully, "This is going to be difficult, but you show her love." I also remember her last words to me, "You take care of my girl." Grandma Strawder was not afraid. Secondly, Grandma Higgins. Now, my own grandmother was not a saint. She would smoke, cuss, and drink. If she didn't like you, she would let you know it. She also tended to be pretty racist and let everyone know it. So when I started to date Cheryl, a black woman, I was scared to death to let my grandma know. She was also disappointed that I left ministry as a priest. So much so that she kept my ordination picture on the fireplace mantle for years after I left ministry. But my grandmother always rose to the occasion when she was needed. Whether it be accepting me as not a priest, or scolding me for not sharing Cheryl with her, her beautiful black granddaughter. But I will always remember my grandmother for her generosity. She had a great devotion to St. Jude, the patron saint of impossible cases. She would, month after month, send a little bit of money out of her small fixed income to the St. Jude Society. I know her children, including my father, worried that she was giving money she desperately needed to a charity they knew little about. But she would say, "It's the least I can do for all the good God has given to me." Grandma Higgins was not afraid. Finally, my sister Becky. Now, my sister is more Catholic than the Pope, and that often made us butt heads. But boy, was she holy. You see, she was the mother of 7 children. She suffered from epilepsy, but she was bound and determined to have a large family. Her determination did not stop there. She wanted to homeschool all 7 of those little children. She put all her effort into homeschooling those kids, and they were prepared for anything the world would bring at them. But the biggest test came when Becky was diagnosed with breast cancer that had spread to her spine and liver. She knew she did not have much time, so she went to work preparing those 7 kids for her eventual death. She made recordings, wrote letters, set up chore lists, had private talks with each child, and got the children into school. She also prepared herself for death with prayer and meditation. all with a joyful heart that only a true Christian disciple can have. My sister was not afraid. We all know women like this, or we should, who are not afraid and willing to trust God in the midst of difficult situations, who are generous to the end. This is the message of our scriptures today. The widow and Elijah are suffering because of a human-made environmental disaster. The poor widow in the gospel is living in bleak poverty because of an unjust economic system. Yet they were not afraid. We too are called to drop our fears and joyfully give even when we feel we have nothing left to give. We are called to model our lives on Christ, who gave his very life for us. So today, let us come to this altar and offer our simple bread and wine and whatever we have left over. But let us also be generous and offer our lives with joy. Let us be true disciples and joyfully give from our poverty, contribute all we have, our whole livelihood. For remember, the jar of flour shall not go empty, nor the jug of oil run dry.